Hey, it's Nick here. It's December 28th, 2021. I am in dire need of somebody to prove me wrong. I think that we should raise the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage, so that all the states have to have the same. I mean, the lowest minimum wage allowed, basically. This is the problem. I'm kind of uneducated on that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I have to admit it. As much as I'd like to think I'm educated on it, I just don't know enough to really support a solid opinion on that type of thing. I definitely think I'm right, though, about it. I mean, yeah, of course I do, but I want someone to prove me wrong, and someone that's educated on it. You know, I don't want someone to contact me and just tell me the basic stuff about how it's going to make all the prices go up or something, because the corporations just have to make the certain amount of money, and that's just the way it is. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry. I know that raising the minimum wage would mean some people would lose jobs. I understand that I do, and I understand that it would increase the prices of some services would go up. I understand that. But to me, it's that if people of a lower socioeconomic status have more money to spend, they'll spend it. If your services are needed, they will still be sought and bought. And it's unfortunate if you lose your job, but based on the research I did, it looked like the amount of people that would lose their jobs was offset by the amount of people that would automatically start earning more money. And I know, it would be a logistical nightmare for some companies. I realize that nothing is ever smooth. I mean, no. I just don't. Here's something. I don't understand why it can't be adjusted to match inflation, like the employees, like in the military's wages are every year. You know, so that they can maintain a certain level, a standard of living, standard quality of life. You know, because that's what it's all about. And I don't like it how it's the poor people who suffer again. Hey, you know what? Us other people that aren't poor we can't stand to suffer at all. Or we can't, you know what I mean? So they just have to keep suffering. And there's other forces at play, of course. And just to me, both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans, are both in cahoots to keep the minimum wage down. It's obvious if you just look at current events and how it's all played out. Because I think they're both working for the same people. It's just red team versus blue team. The owners are the same entity. They're the people who run the government behind the scenes are so powerful. They're the umpires and in the game and the players. You know. And then there's ways. I mean, this is the biggest hustle ever. They make the money out of the thin air and then hand it out. And then when people pay it back, our own government, like the way it's all set up, it's crazy. We pay back actual money we had to work for and earn. We pay back that money they made out of thin air with money we had to work for and earn, and we pay them back with interest. You know, there's things like that. But no, I mean, that's just has to be the way it is, and that's just how, and poor people just have to keep suffering more and more as the money becomes worth less and less every year, due to inflation, and they don't get more of the money, but the prices of their everything that they need to live on goes up or stay. It's hard for me to understand how that's the right way to do it. Just make it it's hard as the more money inflation increases every year, like it's been doing ever since like Nixon or Reagan or somebody. The money gets worth less and less. Price of gold comes into play. Like I've tried to explain it to people. It's like the sphere. This is something I have to accept. It's about other people and myself. We all exist in a sphere of our own common sense experience and areas of study. So And in that sense, once we are, all of our vision comes a little myopic, and we only can see what's directly in front of us. There's other things come into play, like Dunning-Kruger and things like cognitive dissonance and stuff like that. It's just self-justification, all these things. And I don't rehearse these shows. I don't write notes. I'm not looking at paper. This is all in my head. Everything I do is spontaneous, so I can maintain authenticity. But yeah, all right. So to me, the reason why everything gets worse and worse is because they're flooding the money with the market with so much money that and everything's designed to keep the poor down, so that they can't have an uprising or some shit like that. Like, it all makes sense, sometimes the way you look at it. Keep people uneducated, like slaves, just, you know what I mean? Like, make it cool to be dumb, make getting an education almost impossible, or make the people who go that far to get an education, make it so they go broke getting the education. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, that's great, but it's worse in other countries apparently. So I'm lucky just to be here, to be in this slave system, I guess, is how I'm supposed to look at it. And fuck the poor. That's how they, that's like that's the general consensus I get when I talk to people, because everybody, it's just cool to say things like, they can't raise the minimum wage, man. I'll just screw everything up, man. Like, people think they're educated when they say it, Just people think they're educated when they say things like down with big government, Like, yeah, down. I don't want the government in every aspect of our life, but it's the corporations that really benefit from smaller governments, because then they get to be the umpire in the game and the player at the same time. The more the government's not involved, so they get. It's like a big psyops to get poor people to argue against what's in their own best interest. To get poor people to argue against the corporations being able to make their own rules. It's like, and it works, and it's the biggest force in this is keeping people uneducated, making it cool to not be educated, making educated people seem like they're losers. I've seen the memes. Hey, look at this idiot who went to college and he only makes $80,000 a year. You could do that being an electrician, and you didn't have to go to college. Like, the memes, it's cool, man. We need electricians too, or we also need thinkers and artists and all that. We need all that, like, everything. At college, going to college, like, first thing they taught me, and they just every single class, they like drive home the value of critical thinking. They drive home the value of making sure your sources are neutral, and peer-reviewed is always the best way. But there's also degrees of peer review where not all peer-reviewed is good, because sometimes there's journals that they're peer-reviewed, but they're designed so that shoddy stuff can get through. That exists too. Like, you want the finest, most quality peer-reviewed journals you can find if you're going to do research, stuff like that. But anyways, all right, so I've gotten off track, but I think I covered a lot that should be addressed. And yeah, I want someone to explain to me how I'm wrong about how the minimum wage shouldn't at least be adjusted for inflation. How about that? Yeah, someone explain to me that. Thank you very much.